Awesome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be focusing on the V1 Pro app side. We did, many of you, it looks like were on our seminar yesterday, going over the desktop version. I know some of you have desktop only, some of you have the mobile only, and then there's many of you that have kind of created that ecosystem because you are moving indoors and outdoors. So look forward to kind of bridging the gap for those of you that might be a little unclear as to how that ecosystem can work and how we can support it, and also just the general navigation of what the mobile app is, because it is, as many of you saw, very different in some aspects than the desktop app. So we'll go over that. My name is Ryan Burke. I'm your West Coast sales rep. I have been in the technology field for 6 or 7 years, working with a lot of the companies that you guys are familiar with, from KVest to BodyTrack to Blast Motion, working with obviously the guys at BodyTrack and our pressure mats, and coming on board with these guys because I don't think video will ever go anywhere. This is something that draws us between our players, between our coaches, allows us to reflect and get better as coaches. So it's valuable. And so I've been really fortunate to come on board. With me, I've got Will Clark, who's our customer service manager. He's also worked at golf courses, both public and private, for over a dozen years. And we've got Jackson Bushway, who's also played collegiate golf. So we've got kind of an eclectic group of people to be able to bounce ideas off of. So let us get through this. Put your questions in the chat box. We'll try to get through some of them throughout this, but we try to leave 20 minutes or so at the end of this so that we're able to kind of dive into some of those questions and figure out what we may have missed during that time. So without further ado, let me pass it over to these guys and we'll get going.
Thanks, Ryan. Jackson, go ahead and share your screen if you want to.
Absolutely.
And again, everybody submit those questions in the chat box. If they get answered throughout, awesome. If not, we'll try to address them at the end. If anybody wants to have an extended conversation with Jackson or myself, you can reach out to us at customer-success@v1sports.com. I'm sure Kelly or somebody or Anna can type it in the chat box there. Maybe Ryan can. But you guys can reach out to us there for training sessions, further conversations, just looking to talk to you guys about how we can best serve your business solution. So without further ado, let's jump in here. So this first tab that we come to, and basically what I'm going to do is we're going to go through each tab if you're familiar with the app. If not, that's fine. You can see these tabs at the bottom of the screen. So you have My Locker, Inbox, Library, Students, and Info. What we're going to do is we'll just go through each tab, kind of highlight some of the best practices for each tab, if you will. And then when we're done, maybe we'll go through a quick mock lesson. All right, but we'll start with the My Locker page. So that's the first page it opens up to when you open the app. A better way of thinking of the locker is this is really just a cloud storage space, right? And if anybody was here yesterday for the Pro desktop software, you'll know that we were talking about that ecosystem. And I think Ryan mentioned it in his introduction. But this is that same piece of the pie when it comes to accessing videos across devices and making your videos available anywhere, right? So this locker page is a representation of that cloud. Okay, so you're able to put videos in there that you want to access across devices, also videos that you just want to hang on to a solid copy of and erase the local copy. You could put those up on our server and the copy will be saved as a part of your academy. In this locker, there is a subsection up at the top. It says My Lessons and Drills. So you can put lessons in here, but the more important factor, I think, is the drills. And this relates to those intro clips and drill videos that we talked about yesterday. And if you weren't here yesterday, I'll go fully into it. So one of the best things that V1 can do is we can add intro clips and drill videos to your lessons, right? So as you create these voiceover lessons, you can attach an intro clip, which could be your business's logo. It could be as simple as your business card image, whatever you want it to be. We've seen up to as sophisticated as a 5-minute professionally edited video, right? And it's a drone flyover over the pro while he's giving a lesson. And it's a beautiful introduction to this golf professional. So it could be as, sophisticated or as simple as you want it. And then the drill videos are probably even more powerful. They are you on camera demonstrating the drill for the student. So it's a really, really, effective way to kind of give the students something to go home to work on, continue that conversation beyond just the lesson that they took with you and the tips that you might have. And really, we find that that's the number one thing that our golf customers or our student side really react to, is those drill videos and those intro clips. So those are stored here. They're essentially a part of the cloud. So once you do upload them, they are available on both. They're available on the iPad as well as the desktop. We don't have the intro clips and drill videos available on the phone yet. So if you are looking to do this, you will need to at least be in an iPad solution or a desktop. But those can be stored in the cloud, so they're available anywhere when you're creating lessons. So that's awesome. The only other thing on this page that I like to point out is the camera icon at the top right. No need to click it, Jackson, but there is this camera icon up at the top right. I get asked about it a lot. It has nothing to do with the locker. It's just the quickest way to get to the camera, right? So this is the first page that the app opens up to. The camera doesn't put videos in the locker. It doesn't put intro clips in the locker. It is just the fastest way to get to recording. Okay, so just remember that if you need to get to recording, you're out on the course, something sparks your interest, just get to that camera as fast as possible through that locker. There is a camera that makes the most sense as far as sort of the flow of using V1, and that's actually located in the student files. And I'll detail that a little later on. Jackson, do you want to walk them through the inbox real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you can, let me get back to inbox. There we go. As we can see here, guys, this is the inbox tab. Really, this is the tab used for students sending videos to pros through the V1 platform. So you mainly see this with the V1 Golf app. Students can actually select their instructor within that V1 Golf app and send them a video, and it appears here. And with this video, the student sends you, you can accept it, analyze it, and then you can actually send them a voiceover back without ever seeing that student in person. So this was really great for remote teaching, or obviously even if it's for a student that you see maybe once a year, or if they have a winter home or summer home somewhere else. So it's a good way to keep in contact with those students. As well as we have the subsections up at the top here. The outbox is next. Outbox is basically going to be any unsent lessons to your students. So you're going to have either unsent lessons because of Wi-Fi connectivity, or unsent lessons because you want to maybe review them before you send them out. And all those lessons would appear here in the outbox. In order to send these lessons in the outbox, guys, just hit that half circle button up in the top right. And then if you're connected to Wi-Fi, it's going to automatically go right out to the designated student. And then the send button here, send is just going to show you guys all the lessons that you've sent your students over time using V1. You want to walk them through the library there, Will?
Yep, absolutely. And then the only other thing I had on that inbox was that refresh button. I know you touched on it, but that's the action button, right? So that refresh button up at the top right corner, that little half circle. No matter what box, what section you're in, that's your action button. Just wanted to double down on that. But go ahead and jump to the library. So the library, the key thing I like to make clear about the library is you're actually going to find that you don't spend a lot of time here, right? The video organization is driven through the student files. If anybody was here yesterday, they would have seen this detailed on the desktop side, but it's maybe even more so on the mobile side, right? So if I'm organizing things by the student files, I'm not going to find myself in this library too often, but I do want to detail the couple of instances where you actually might find yourself here in this library, right? So the two main ones I feel, or there's really three, but the two main ones are any model videos that you download. This is where they're going to be located. You could actually move them to a student file, but for the most part, most people keep them here in the library. So you might find yourself when you're doing a comparison, coming to the library, searching through here, finding a video for comparison. The other instance where you find yourself in here is if you imported a video. I'm not sure, Jackson, did we talk about when you receive a video from the inbox, that video is automatically put into the student's file, which is a really nice feature of that inbox. That obviously does not happen if we import a video, right? So if we import a video, it's not coming through the V1 system. We don't know who it's coming from. You know, they haven't registered with us or anything like that. It's just coming from your camera roll. So ultimately what you'll need to do is you'll need to go into the all folder and you'll find that video, and it's date and time stamped, and it'll say imported content. And you can find it very easily. And then you could assign that video to a student, right? But those are the only two main instances I think that you'll find yourself in here. Um, these folders kind of self pop up on their own. So before you have a models folder, you'll have nothing, and then as soon as you download a model, it's going to create a model for you, or a model folder for you, right? So you can't uniquely name them or change them. They're just going to kind of pop up on their own as you go. Jackson, hit the plus symbol in the top right. So I just want to detail these options real quick. The main one is import drill content, but download V1 model if you're not familiar with it. This is where you're going to download one of our tour models. New video capture, it's just the second place to actually open up the camera. And Jackson, go ahead and open it up. All right, so just really quickly, the only thing I want to point out is the import button. So you have the import button at the bottom right corner. This is the button that you'll use to import videos that you want to work with, right? Or videos that you want to analyze and send to a student and work with in the way that you normally would, right? Go ahead and hit the cancel button, Jackson. I just want to make the distinction between that button and hit the plus symbol and that import drill content button. So they obviously sound different. One's just import, one says import drill. And if you could guess, that import drill content button does exactly that. It's there to import intro clips and drill videos. Where it ultimately puts the video is the difference. The import drill content button is going to put it in the locker. It's going to make it available as a drill or intro clip and addable, if that's a word, but addable to a lesson video. Whereas a video that is simply imported is put into the library, and then it could be put into a student file. It could be worked with, it could be drawn on, and it could be turned into a lesson, right? So that's the main difference and distinction that I like to make in the library. But other than that, you really won't find yourself in here too often. Like I said, when we get to the student tab here in a second, I'll detail how you really should be organizing your videos and how you're finding them and all of that stuff. But Jackson, why don't we skip over the student tab, go to the info tab, and just detail a couple of items there for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the info tab, guys. The first thing you probably should know is the version number, which is in the top right. So if you guys have ever any issues or anything like that, we're most likely going to ask you what version you're running, and then you can find that right there in the info tab. The other thing would be the online help articles. So this button actually accesses our support database. So you can actually go through here. If you have any questions, maybe it's late at night, you're trying to find an answer on how do I send a lesson with drawings, or how do I, send a video just to the student, or anything like that. You can go ahead, click those online help articles, and we have a lot of articles to help you answer your questions there as well. So
Can you click on that, Jackson? Just show them real quick.
absolutely.
I think it should. And specifically scroll down to that drills and intros article. So right there, guys, there's the article that actually helps you. It lays out the process for creating drills and intros on the iPad. Now, just like Jackson said, there's a number of articles in here that detail simple processes, right? Things that, we're going to talk about in training, or we're going to go over here today. You've probably heard it, but if you forget it, come back here and reference it. But specifically that intro clips and drill video article, I love to point out because it's a great reference tool for anybody that starts to get into that and go down that road. Go ahead and jump to the student tab for me. All right, so we'll kind of get in here. This is kind of the meat and potatoes of how to work with V1 in general, but specifically on the mobile side. So, number one, we said it yesterday, golden rule, enroll your students, right? So every student that you have that comes in to work with you, you want to be enrolling them. Jackson, hit the plus symbol real quick. Really fast, there's the other two options. I'm going to show you enter details myself, but we have import from address book and sync with Branded Academy. Those are great options. Syncing with Branded Academy actually brings in any student data from your academy that you've worked, any student that you've worked with in the last 90 days. So if you've sent a student a lesson or you've sent them a video, and let's say you are just getting a new device, right? You're moving into a new iPad. If you hit that Sync with Branded Academy button, it's going to populate that iPad with all of the students that you've worked with in the last 90 days. So it'll at least help you with some of that transferring of student data. But go ahead and hit enter details myself, Jackson. So enter details myself here. Just real quick, I want to describe what's on the screen. So name, email address, phone number. We need the name and the email address in order to save a student. We need to know who to send it to, basically. If they are using the V1 Golf app, you want to make sure that the email you're using for them matches the one that they use for the V1 Golf app. right? And same thing if you're going to go encourage your students to download the V1 Golf app, you want to make sure that they're going to give you the same email they're going to go register with, right? So make sure you have that conversation with them, especially if you're encouraging your students to go ahead and download that app. Mobile phone is optional. I highly recommend it. It gives you that second opportunity. We spoke about this yesterday, to get the lesson delivered, right? So if the email's wrong, and we can attest, Jackson and I, that's the #1 most common reason why a lesson doesn't get delivered is the email is off by a character, or it's .com when it should be .net, right? So in order to make sure that the student is at least getting the lesson, we can throw in that phone number, and hopefully we're not getting them both wrong, right? If we get them both wrong, it's a whole nother story, but hopefully we're getting one or the other right. And now at least the student gets their content and there's no waiting for their lesson, right? There are some built-in communication tools. You'll see them there kind of in the middle of the screen, right underneath mobile phone. They're just built-in buttons that actually open up those forms of communication on your device. They're really nice and really convenient. Those messages aren't housed in V1 or anything like that. It's just going to open up your text message thread, let's say, with that student. So it's a really cool tool. It's actually a newer feature of ours, but we're really excited about it. The notes section, that's that gray area. That's a great place to put in any notes on the student, anything that you want to remember about them. I think Ryan spoke about this yesterday, right? Maybe you're capturing their spouse's name, their kid's name, their birthday, things, besides just the fact that they have a bum left knee and they swing too far from the outside, right? Things that'll help you professionally, you can put in there. #1 question we always get asked is, does the student see that area? They do not, right? So this is for you. This is just for you to remind yourself of anything you might be working on with that student. On the right there, you have the videos and lessons for each student. So it's all on one page, right? We saw this yesterday on the desktop. We have to assign the student as current, and then we can see their bin and we can view their videos specifically. In this case, we can just simply open up their file, and now we're looking at both the student information as well as their videos and lessons right next to each other. So it's really, really nice. Jackson, hit the back button for me for 1 second. So that's how you enter a student. Now, I want to get into more of the function of V1. So one of the bigger pieces when you're working with V1 is you want to be selecting the current student, right? We talked about this yesterday. Anybody familiar with V1 knows that this is a very important piece. The way you do it on the mobile side, I'll demonstrate this for you. You see at the bottom of the screen in gray, it says press or hold to select the current student. So Jackson, do that with somebody's name. Do it with Michelle, let's say. So he's going to hold on Michelle's name, and at the bottom of the screen, you'll see it changes to current student Michelle Neva, right? The other way that you can make it so that somebody is the current student is you simply open up their file. So in this case, Jackson, just go ahead and open up yours. And you'll notice at the bottom of the screen, and now it says current student Jackson Bushway, right? So the way that we've sort of drawn this up, the way that we imagine this working, Jackson, back out to anywhere, just my locker. Yeah, there we go. That's perfect. So let's say we just started off on the day. The first thing that we recommend you do is you come to the student tab. You decide, okay, I'm working with Jackson Bushway right now. Let me open up Jackson's file, right? That makes it so he's the current student. And now what I do is I bring myself up to speed on what I was working with Jackson on, whether it's notes that I've put down, any V1 videos that I have, any lessons that I've done with him, right? So it's an easy way to bring yourself back up to speed. And then you'll notice there's a camera icon up in the top right corner. So earlier I mentioned that there is a camera that makes the most sense as far as the flow of V1, right? This is the camera I was referring to, because if we're selecting the current student a part of our process, right, an important part of how we start our day, that means that we're ensuring they've been selected as the current student by opening the camera from within that student's file, right? So we can do this a number of ways. We can select them as the current student and go open the camera elsewhere. But I always love to train people to do it this way because it ensures that they've selected that student as the current one. Right? And it just means that I'm now going to make video content for that specific student, right? In this case, so I'm actually going to have Jackson walk you through it. But in this case, we're going to run you through a quick mock lesson, right? We've shown you each tab and some of the highlights of each tab. But what I really want Jackson to do is walk us through the process of receiving a video in the inbox, what that looks like, where that video goes, how does he find it, and then how does he turn that video into a lesson. And then I think during the lesson, he's going to detail some different tools and whatnot. But Go ahead, Jackson.
Awesome. Thanks, Will. So as you guys can see, I already sent myself a video through the V1 Golf app. I'll go ahead and click on that. I will go ahead and accept it in the middle of the screen there. And then as this is downloading, guys, this kind of relates to your Wi-Fi as well. If you have a higher, if your Wi-Fi is good, it's going to download pretty fast. If not, it may take a couple minutes, but it will pop up on the screen when it is ready. So at this point, guys, you accepted the video. It's automatically the current student, since it's that student that sent it to you specifically. At this point, in the top right, you have your toolbox here. Not as many tools as, Will and Ryan went through yesterday, but you do have some here. You have the line, as you can see. I can go ahead and, draw a line down the club shaft here if I want to, or I can go ahead and maybe draw a circle around his head if I'd like to as well. So as you can see, I'm not a very good drawer of circles. So what I can actually do is put my thumb and my index finger together and press and hold on the screen and actually minimize or maximize that circle there, so I can fit it perfectly on his head, as you can see. And that goes with the square as well. So if I wanted to get the square maybe around his hips, I can go ahead and do that there. And then when I'm good to go, I just take my 2 fingers off the screen at that point. So that's, some of the tools there that you can do there as well. Going up to back to the toolbox as well there, you have the pinch tool, which just zooms in or zooms out on the video. Next to that, you have your move button, which, as you can see, I have a couple drawings on the screen. As soon as I hit that move button, there's a red dot that appears on both of those drawings. If I press and hold on that red dot, I'm able to move that certain drawing around the screen. So like I said, maybe it was a little bit above the club shaft. I can go ahead and drop that down to right on the club shaft there. And the nice thing with the drawing or the move tool, you can actually draw with it as well. So if I wanted to draw, for alignment purposes, right on his, feet there, I can go ahead and do that there as well. And then the eraser to finish it off, the eraser erases everything on the screen. If you want to get rid of the last thing that you drew, go ahead and just double tap, and it gets rid of that very last thing that you drew. Oh, my screen's there we go. Screen was lagging a little bit. So that's the toolbox there, guys. Like I said, nothing too special. Not as many tools as the desktop, but definitely some good tools there to utilize. So we'll go to the V1 button up in the top left here. Just wanted to go over a couple of these here. Your flip button, we'll just flip it from a righty to a lefty or vice versa. You have your trim button there. The trim button actually, this comes in very handy with, those V1 golf videos that your students send you, that the trim button allows you to go ahead and trim that up to maybe a 20-second video to a 4 or 5 second. Because, we love our students, but, they don't know how to utilize the countdown timer very well sometimes. So we can go ahead and trim that video up and get that going for our, make it easier on you guys as well. And then the other one I wanted to touch on real quick, guys, before we start the lesson is the compare button. So the compare button in here allows you to actually pull in a model video, and then that, or maybe a before and after as well, just pulls in that side-by-side view or that top and bottom, so you can compare your original video to it. So I'll go ahead and hit start lesson here. And then you will see in the bottom left, guys, that there's that countdown timer. It's counting down currently from 10 minutes. So at this point, anything that I draw on the screen or anything that I do with the video, if I want to play the video out or maybe drag it to impact, for example, I can go ahead and do that there. And then anything I do at this current time is being recorded by the system. Maybe I want to draw a line down his spine here as well. I can go ahead and do that. Or even if I wanted to pull in a compare, maybe a compare model in here as well, I can go ahead and bring in Aaron Baddeley, hit compare. And at that point, I can go ahead and maybe drag Aaron to impact as well. And I can compare those two videos, draw some lines, do whatever I'd like to do, and then go ahead and do that. And then whenever you guys are done, you'll go ahead and hit that V1 button in the top left, hit end lesson, and then you'll come to review lesson page. This is where you guys can go ahead, re-watch the video, re-listen to it, make sure it's what you want to send the student before you actually send it out as well. In that middle left area there, that dark gray box, as you can see, it does have lesson V1 golf video. I actually recommend renaming this. I know I'm speaking for Will as well. The reason we recommend this is because it's a pretty generic name. The next time you go under the student file, you will see in the lessons tab that it will be whatever you save it as. So you could change that name to maybe, you know, posture lesson or grip lesson, something simple. So the next time you go into that student profile, you can remember what you worked on with the student instead of having to rewatch that 4 or 5 minute voiceover. So like I said, you guys can rename this to whatever you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and just rename it to test lesson real quick. And then at that point, it automatically saves as you guys hit done or return in the right side there. In the right side, the bottom right there, you see the V1 lesson here, guys. That just is your lesson, your voiceover lesson. Will touched on the drills earlier. This is where you guys are going to go ahead and add those drills in right here. So that plus button at the bottom, I can go ahead and press that. And then you'll see it pulls up that locker of drills that Will talked about earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and just pick that Big Dave drill at the very top there. I'll highlight it, hit done in the bottom right. And then at that point, it has been added to my, my queue there, as you can see. So at this point, if I wanted to move it around, I could use those up and down buttons at the bottom there and go ahead and move it to however I'd like. Anything to add on that, Will?
Yeah, I mean, just that you're creating a playlist there. That's all. That bottom right section, you're creating a playlist. However you want it to show up to the student is how you should order it. So if you have an intro clip, obviously the beginning, outro or a drill could be at the end, that type of thing. But no, that's fantastic. And really, I mean, Jackson, you can just go back to like the locker or something. But I mean, I'd like both you and I to really just name a couple of just simple best practices. I know for me, especially when I'm training, I always like to encourage people to download the V1 Golf app if you haven't already. I know a lot of our instructors, that's their introduction to our software. But if you're not familiar with it, get familiar with it, download it, send yourself some lessons back and forth. I think that's one of the best tips that I have as far as getting better with the software. And what's even more important is now you can actually describe this to your student, right? And I think that's a big part of it is if you're going to go encourage everybody to download this sort of other side of the ecosystem, right? And you're not using it, it's going to be really hard for you to describe to them how they need to use it in order to connect with you. So for me, that's always a big recommendation, a big best practice. And I highly recommend it to everybody. Jackson, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, the only best practice I really have is, you know, you mentioned it earlier, Will, but just making sure you enter a student in. You have, if you don't have them in your system while they're warming up, maybe they're hitting some balls before the lesson, throw them in there. You know, make a student, you know, throw their information in there. It's just going to make it a lot easier on you guys in the long run. So you don't have to go back, assign each video to a certain student, and you can go back in there and just kind of continue with your lesson. And then obviously have their information on file when they do come back. So just always entering that student in and making sure that they are selected as the current student.
Yeah, and I don't think we touched on it yesterday as much as we probably should have. But that's a great point, Jackson, because this relates to the, you know, kind of term or concept that we talk a lot about here at V1, which is swing banking, right? So we're able to swing bank swings of our students, right? Whether they're good or bad. But we hear this concept a lot these days where an instructor, right? Normally we see our students when they're struggling, right? That tends to at least be the overwhelming majority. Some of us see our students all the time, but most of the time they're coming in when they need a tune-up or something's going wrong. The idea that we're swing banking good swings of that student is a whole new concept to me, at least. And I love the idea that you can do that with the way that V1 is set up, right? So you can take swings and you can keep them on file and you can look back chronologically and see where that golfer was. So if there ever is a time where they feel like they're struggling, it's so much easier to pull out that swing from when they were swinging well, and it's good to go. I think one of our instructors that we work with here quite a bit at V1, he teaches a few PGA Tour players. He says, you know, they get a call. He always gets a call Monday morning after they've won, right? And they say, what did you think? And he always tells them, I want you in. I want to record your swing, right? And it's so that he can capture that good swing when things are going good so that they can reference it when things are going bad. And I just think that relates to the power of using those student files, enrolling everybody, and keeping a really good database of golf swings on each student of yours. It could only help you as an instructor.
You guys touched on one of the questions just now as well. I had a question just a little bit ago about those model swings, right? What should I have in my bank, right? And I think it's important for you to understand what you're trying to accomplish with the technology you have in front of you. You know, a lot of the comments that we have now are, it would be nice, or do you think we'll ever have, you know, some of these things where it's like, well, you know, like Apple Pencil, we had that come up. It's a great idea, but what's the ultimate goal for it, right? Is it, because we're trying to make it simple, right? So we have our mobile app versus our desktop app, but there's more features in one versus the other in many respects, you know, like the clock, for instance, right? Because that's more of a visual on the wall or on the bigger screen for your player. So, you know, are you trying to teach your player on a mobile app and go through the swing analysis on the mobile app, or are you transferring it to your desktop? So understand the ecosystem. And when it comes to your bank of videos, you know, how do you teach? What's important to you, right? If you see, you know, we see, I think almost everyone would agree, we see a lot of early extension in the golf swing, and then a lot of compensations to try to figure out how to fix that, right? We're trying to figure out steeps and shallows. So, you know, it's important to have someone that's severely steep, so that when you do have someone that is mildly steep, you can show them severely steep and say, this is what this guy's doing. You're not that far gone, but let's see if we can get you here. So find out where those videos fall in and save them. You don't need 200 videos in there, because I've seen so many people on the lesson tee that goes, oh, you know, I've got a great video of, boy, I can't remember the name of the person, and they're scrolling. They've lost their student. If you don't know how to organize your mobile app to be able to talk to your students and use the mobile app to better the lesson, don't do that, right? Wait till you get to your desktop app, or wait till you send it and you can voice over 3 or 4 times until you get it right. But find the ecosystem there. And we're always looking at what the next step is. And with, you know, to go back to Apple Pencil, the developer kits get easier and easier to integrate into new technologies. So you kind of let that first wave go, and, you know, and you start to see how those come. So when it comes to what's next for V1, we're always going to move in the direction to make it simpler, easier, and a better ecosystem for your, you know, for your players. So if you see features that you're missing, that's when you reach out to the sales team or reach out to the success team and say, you know, it's not a nice to have, it's a, this is now something that I really do need within my academy, because we get 500 nice to haves. And, you know, it's very difficult to say, yeah, that would be a feature that we really want, because that's just one person. So, you know, as you're instructing, as you're trying to figure out, you know, what's missing in there, really kind of hit us with those, this needs to happen in the future for me to be as successful. And we can really kind of push the development team and saying, you know, here's a lot of noise, but here's a feature that, you know, astoundingly is telling us this is going to make our players and our instructors better. That's where we can put those resources and make sure that we're continuing to drive in the right direction. Hopefully that answered some of the questions that we've got on kind of the odds and ends. I know we've got, we'll hit some more. They'd like to see how to delete a player at one point in time. So that's something that we should hit on.
Jackson, feel free, go ahead and delete me.
So yeah, all I'll do is I'll go ahead and swipe left on Will's name. And then at that point, you see the delete button there. I can go ahead and delete Will there, as you can see. So.
I do see a couple that I want to pick off. So first, Ian, I see you asked about the 322. Jackson is living on the edge. He's using a test version. So that number is not currently available in the App Store, so no worries, but it is on its way. Obviously, it's in the hands of Jackson, so we are testing. So that is coming. Let's see. The features that are available on the iPad, not on the phone, going to be available soon. So we are in development. There's very little features that don't show up on the phone versus the iPad. I think really it's limited to the structure of the files, where you see the videos and the lessons on one page instead of having to click through. But the only functionality difference I see is the ability to add drills and intro clips. But that is in development right now. I think it's a real estate issue as far as the screen size. I wish I was more of a developer to give you an answer there, but I do know it is in development. It is something we've mentioned to them, and I think that we all feel would be nice to have access to on the phone. So that's definitely something we're working on. Let's see. I'm just going to go back a little bit, see if we have some old ones here. There we go. The best swing models. Yeah, okay, so Ryan, you just touched on that one. Let's see. How do I delete a student? The Apple Pencil. So that's the question you were talking about. As far as I know, there are some styluses that work with V1. I was actually not aware that the Apple Pencil does not. Jackson, maybe you were, but David, reach out to us. Send us an email on that one, because I would like to look into that further for you. And at the very least, maybe recommend some styluses that could work with V1, because I do know that certain ones do. In fact, I have one. Let's see. And mine is a fancy V1 one from our very own Kelly. Let's see here. Debbie, the clock, that's a great feature request. Putting the clock in the tools for the mobile app would be great. I think you actually might be more excited to hear that we're working on getting the key positions moved over from the desktop side. So I'll add that to the list. I think the clock tool is a viable tool to bring over into the mobile side. Certainly just have to add some lines to our circle tool maybe. It's probably speaking a little simpler than it really is, but I will mention that to them. But look for those key positions, right? I think those key positions are a big separator for a lot of people, and we've kind of been beating down the door of development to get them to move that to the mobile side. So look for that additional feature coming soon. David, okay, David, another one, 3-minute lessons, really valuable to pause the recording. So you can pause the lesson when you're during a lesson. You can hit the V1 icon and it will pause it. It's not going to let you bring in other videos though. I think that's maybe where you're going, is you want to do one video and then bring in another and then bring in another. That is not possible. You can only do comparisons with the original video, right? I do like that. Maybe I'll mention that as a feature request as well. But a workaround is you could do miniature lessons and save them to the outbox and then send it all out at once as sort of a, put together lesson there, if you will. That's a great question.
You know what, that workflow works really well for me, and mostly because, I usually take 2 or 3 takes with each of these little mini lessons. So it does give me a little bit of a, okay, that one's done, right? And this one's done. And sometimes I'll filter those to the players too and say, you know what, I'm giving them this first one. I'm gonna let them digest it for a little bit. That was the most important 2-minute spot. Then this next one is the next 2-minute spot, right? And then, when I haven't heard from them in 2 weeks, I might send them a third one that, just kind of reflects other things. So it can go back to your marketing. I think it is, I think it's set up in a good way, but it's one of those, if you're running into something that isn't working for you, start with me, because at least I can say, hey, this professional down the street does it this way and has found it to be really well. Why don't you give that a shot? And if not, I'll put you in a direction of somebody else. Because more times than not, we're regurgitating the success stories of all the coaches that have been doing this. So, it's not what we think is necessarily the best workplay. It's how is this working in these certain environments? And that could be between mobile and desktop. When you're in a dedicated space or you've got multiple instructors working within the same one, let's just talk it out, because I think we can make it a lot easier. We are a very robust system, but find your one path. And once you do that, you shouldn't have to veer off that much. And I think you'll find that, you've got a lot of the assets within there, but it's just a matter of refining the direction that you take each time. And for many of you that talked about, parents getting the lessons yesterday, it's, it might be a printed out sheet to say, hey, this is my new student. These are the parents, these are the emails, these are the phone numbers, and there's the physical limitations, so that you can then transfer that to this and make it a better ecosystem for it. Because, me personally, if I'm working on mobile, I don't like to enter anything in front of the student. It just gets to be a bit too monotonous, and I'm not very good at finger typing emails, so I'm going to make mistakes. So there's things like we can show you, and I think we have some instructors that we could give you an idea of what their 1-page form is for what's most important for them in that initial lesson. So use this as a resource in that regard, but I think you could find an easier path with just discussing with us a little bit more.
Hey, Jackson, I'm going to speak to one question right now while you show them how to download a model. All right, okay. So go ahead and watch the screen if you want to see how to download a model. Relatively simple. You're just clicking on the model and then saying analyze, and it'll actually download to your system. But watch Jackson as he goes here. I appreciate the comment, James. I did see one in here, though. Rob, so V1 gives you 10 minutes to produce a student lesson. Is that a good enough time? Do most golf pros do a 10-minute lesson? Is 5 minutes shorter and sweeter? I'll give you my answer as a former pro, and I'll let Ryan speak on this too. So for me, I think 10 minutes is plenty, right? I think when you're going through the system, whether you're learning from a head professional that you work with or some other source, you usually hear a lot about not overloading the student, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that you will overload them if you go for a certain amount of time. But I think that we on the V1 side, again, I'll let Ryan speak more to the teaching side, but V1, we have done some research to show a couple things. One is the shorter the video, whether it's 60 to 90 seconds is I think our recommendation. I've stretched that personally to 2 or 3 minutes, right? But the shorter the video, the more likely they are to not only watch it again, because it's not 10 minutes long, it doesn't take them so long to get through the video, but also they're more likely to share that video, right? They're more likely to show their buddies. And we always hear this kind of funny joke, right? These days, when your buddy sends you a link to watch something that's funny and it's 20 minutes long, you're kind of like, well, when am I going to laugh, right? When does the joke come? Whereas the same thing kind of happens with lessons, right? A guy says, hey, Ryan Burke sent me this life-changing lesson, and you pass him over a phone that's got a 10-minute lesson. It's like, all right, well, when does the life change happen, right? So just get it to him a little shorter and sweeter. Don't overload them. I'd say 2 to 3 minutes. Ryan, what's your recommendation there?
It comes to the goal, right? To me, there's times when I have been given the stream of consciousness, if you will, right? Here's our lesson. We recorded the whole thing so you can see, how are you walking into your shots? What do you do? Like just the overall thing. But then there's the shorter, sweeter. And, we know the successful coaches that market themselves put up lessons on Instagram that are very, very short, very direct, right? We had a big push in golf where it was like, we're not talking anymore, right? We're just going to go. And then that was the end of the video because people were like, okay, that's simple. I don't have to hear what he's trying to say. I'm just looking at club went this way, now it went this way. That's a really good visual. So just be aware of what you're trying to do. And I think shorter is sweeter when it comes to marketing, when it's coming to positive reinforcement. But if you need a longer video, right, to me, if you're getting over 5 or 10 minutes, you're not annotating, right? You're giving them that movie, that time that we had together so that you can reflect on it. So, and maybe there is somebody out there that is going to dictate a 20-minute video. And if that happens, we'll figure out how to adjust. But I haven't seen anybody that's needed that kind of critique that long, right? I mean, I've never even seen it on Monday Night Football, right? Like you're going to get one line and off you go. But and aside from Nickelodeon and all the other stuff they're throwing up there, but this is short and sweet for the most part. But if you find something that we're not able to do, or you think it's longer, let's work it out. But I think where we're at has been good for the masses.
Yeah, and there's so many things you can do with V1 beyond just a regular lesson. I think we talked about this yesterday. You could do a group lesson where you're speaking to an entire group of people, giving them a lesson on a tour model or something like that. And maybe that's where you're using more than the short and sweet method. Maybe you're using that full 10. Maybe on the desktop side, you're using that full 30, right? But we just have it there if you need to use it. It doesn't necessarily set the benchmark for how long something should be. But that's a great question. Let's see.
Hey, Will.
Yes.
Can we address Rob Boyle's question? He says V1 gives you 10 minutes to produce a student lesson.
I just did.
Good? Oh, you did?
That's what we were just discussing. Yeah. You were bringing in the model. It's all good.
I'm responding to messages. So
yeah. No, you're all good. I saw that one. That was a good question though. Let's see. Does the V1 Mobile work on the iPad, or do you need the Studio or Complete package? So V1 Mobile does work on the iPad. You can log in on both your phone and your iPad with that subscription. The Complete package or the Studio package is what gives you that desktop side, right? And I don't know, Ryan, if you had more comments on that, but I just would give it a clear-cut answer there.
No, I think we're good. At the end of the day, guys, we're all talking opinions right now when it comes to how long your instructional videos is. The only person that knows how long your instructional video should be is yourself, right? Like you're your golf professional, you're creating your business. And if you think longer videos, then build your business around it. So, I would say the masses are far less than that. Even 2 to 3 minutes, it's a lot of golf swings when you think about the golf swings taking less than 2 seconds, right? There's a lot of swings in there. You slow it down, you put your lines, you draw that out. I can't imagine that most of my lessons are any more than 30 seconds long when it comes to dictation and positions, unless I'm stopping something and then talking in extent as to why we're where we're at. But shorter is better in my opinion. But again, it's just an opinion.
Let's see. All right. On the mobile side, Joachim, it might be a little harder on the mobile side. The way that I've come up with this is if you have a group email, it's probably the only way that you can really do it on the mobile side. And I guess that is a key difference, or that's another difference, is you can't add the multiple people the way you can on the desktop side. But if you do set up like an email that goes to all of these people, that's another way to do it. So if you have like a women's league at your club, set up a Tuesday women's league email group, right? And then that email address will go to everybody, right? So you can send that lesson out to everybody. So it is a bit of a workaround on the mobile side. It does require a little bit of effort on the email side for you, but it is still possible. It's just make it so that one email address goes to all of those people that you're trying to reach. So that's a good one. Lloyd, I think I saw Lloyd earlier with a question about transferring students.
Something just to add to that, what I've done with mine is, because we're all working on our emails as well, right? So we all have Outlook, or we have, any number of different ones. If you create, if you send that group lesson to your inbox, now you have all of your different contacts set up in those groups. So you can do that as well, because I know we're going to still do email marketing and some of those. So, you've got a couple workarounds to be able to do it. But once you have that, you have your email database, you're able to get that equally as easy that way as well.
Yep. And I think the question earlier, I think from Lloyd, was how do I import students from, says the mobile app to the iPad? I'm assuming you're meaning you're using like the Pro app. If you're talking about the golf app and then moving it over, you'd probably be talking about video content because there is no student data in there. But if you're talking about getting student data from, let's say, the Pro app on your phone to the app on your iPad, it's that sync with branded academy button. Jackson, if you just want to show that real quick, Jackson will hit the plus symbol here in the student tab, and it's that third option, sync with branded academy. So again, just to give you an example, if you were to get a new iPad, right, and you wanted to transfer all of that student data over, the first thing you would do is you would hit the sync with branded academy button. This would populate that new device with all of the students that you've quote unquote worked with in the last 90 days. And when I say worked with, I mean sent a video or a lesson to, right? As long as you've done one of those two things with that student in the last 90 days, all of those students will come over to the new device, right? So hopefully your regular students will at least come over. If you have to fill in a couple gaps here and there, that's okay. But at least we can bring over the bulk of your students that you've been working with. All right, so that's how you transfer, whether it's from desktop to mobile, mobile to mobile, whatever it is. You'll use the Sync with Branded Academy button on the mobile side, and then on the desktop side, it actually says Sync Students. David, in terms of, let's see. In terms of emailing lessons through native email, send a link to the cloud or the actual video. I guess I'm not sure about the native email part. I mean, the lessons are going basically from V1. So they're coming from a V1 email address. And when it gets sent, it has a link to watch the video, which they can quickly open up a web form to watch that. Native on the iPad. I guess Jackson, do you understand?
I think he's referring to like when you sign up on the iPad or sign up your mail provider on the iPad. Does it come from that?
Right. No, it'll come from V1. So it's going to come from V1 Sports. It'll say your academy sent them a lesson. What you can do is you can custom edit the email to sound like it's coming more from you, but it's not. It's not coming from your native email like you're saying, or the email that's logged in on your device. So no, it's not going through there. But when it does come from V1, it sends that email with a link. They can click on it and watch the video. Otherwise, that email is telling them that video has gone to the V1 Golf app, which is where they can go download it. And if we haven't stressed it enough, if people aren't already doing it, highly recommend that you have your students download that app. It's going to make your life easier. It's going to make their experience with the lessons they receive from you that much easier, because it organizes the videos and it makes it really seamless to communicate with you as the instructor, right? So definitely encourage people to do that. It's going to help. And like I said, there's no email. It just moves that video over to their golf app if that's how you look at it, right? Otherwise, it is an email and it has a link in it, stuff like that.
Yeah, if you're not doing that, you should. You really should. I mean, it makes the ecosystem incredibly easy, and it also motivates them to have a golf app that when they sit there, you're like, you know what? I am going to record a video, and oh yeah, I can send it back to you, right? Even if it's a garbage video that with bad camera angles, at least they're communicating with their golf coach. So get them to download it, get them to use it. Until you do it, I mean, that ecosystem's broken. I think every every student that I've ever had a lesson with has at least downloaded it so that they can try to teach themselves, even if it's, maybe
Yeah.
not the way to go.
And just to speak on that, I hear it all the time. It's great. And it's very rare that a pro says, hey, I don't want them to have this powerful of technology, because then they're doing all this self-analysis. But I got to tell you, in my experience as an instructor, and a lot of the guys I talk to, that self-analysis leads them right back to you, right? I don't mean to hate on our students, right? But a lot of times they're not working on the right thing or whatever, and they think they're on the right track. And ultimately it just leads them right back to you for either that validation or that level of expertise to at least steer them back to the right direction or confirm what they've been working on, right? So don't be afraid to get them into that V1 Golf app, get them doing some self-analysis, because it's only going to lead to more conversations with you. Which to download. Chris, if you're talking about, oh, there you go. Yep. V1 Golf app. So the Red app. Yep. So it's the Red app for the students. Again, if I didn't mention it, I think I did, but I recommend, my number one recommendation when I'm training anybody who just joined V1 is download the V1 Golf app. Send yourself a video as the instructor, send it back as a lesson. Do that 2 or 3 times, and I guarantee you're going to feel that much more comfortable on both ends, whether it's the pro side or the golf side. Regarding, let's see. Wendy, what I'll do, I think we'll send you an email. So we do have some great tutorial videos on our YouTube page that detail exactly how to do that. And for me, I mean, I could type up an email for you, no problem. We'll discuss that when we reach out. But it's great to send these guys this link to these videos that are 1.5 minutes, really good visual assets. It lays it out very simply. Our beautiful Anna Buffat put these together tirelessly. So please put them to use. But they are really good videos. I send them to our instructors all the time who are asking the exact same question, is how do I describe to my students how to use the app, how to connect with me, how to send videos. I send them 2 or 3 links to videos, and usually they just send this out to their entire student database. But we'll reach out to you. There you go. Awesome. Thanks for the email. We will reach out to you, shoot me an email and discuss this with you. No problem.
And just to piggyback on that, it was a really cool, I was up at a course recently, and the instructor actually, first thing he did is goes, give me your phone, to his student, and he downloaded the app and entered their information in. So he's like, now we're good. So first lesson was gone through theirs, right? Because first lesson, you're learning everything. You're trying to figure out what their goals are, all this. So you don't need to set up your high-speed cameras necessarily, right? You use their V1 Golf app. You can record it the first time, and now they're in the ecosystem. So I thought that was a really cool way to do it. I know that currently it's probably not the best to be grabbing other people's technologies and all that, but it's a great way to just say, you're getting in my ecosystem. Here's the app. Here's how to do it. And especially for those that tend to teach all ranges, you're going to have to do that, right? The fact that there's people that just aren't going to download these apps unless you do it for them. And I think we all know how to download an app at this point in time. So help motivate some of our players to stay there.
Yep, and I see Diane. Diane, good to see you in here. We will absolutely reach out to you, but Kelly also put the link right there above. So if you want to click on that link, that is the link to our YouTube channel. Lots of great videos on there, not just about what we're talking about, but about just about everything related to V1. Tuesday traces are stored there. Some of our better tutorial videos are there. A lot of Michael Breed content where he's discussing V1. So really take a look in there. There's a lot of great stuff in that V1 YouTube channel for sure. Let's see here. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. Jackson, real quick, why don't you just open up the golf app? We got 2-3 minutes here. Open up the golf app real quick. Wendy, so Wendy and Diane, if you're watching, we'll give you the 2-minute drill here, right? But this is basically what your student will do. So this is the V1 Golf app. They'll open it up. Jackson, just simply connect with me. So he'll go to the instructor tab on the bottom there. It's the 3rd tab over. So he hits the instructor tab. It says change Academy and Pro, and you will say select Academy and Instructor if they haven't chosen anybody. So Jackson's changing it. He enters in My Academy.
Sorry, lagging a little bit, Will.
It's okay. It's okay. There I am at the top. They're actually at the top. So you can connect with any of the instructors that are a part of that academy. He chooses one, which is me. And now he's connected to me. And then Jackson, show him how quickly you can just send a video. So all he did was he went into the instructor tab, assigned me as the instructor. Jackson, even go back to the list view. Do it from the list view there. So he doesn't even need to open up the video. He just simply clicks on the 3 dots to the right of the video. And that's going to open up these options. And it's very clearly right there, send video to my pro, right? So once they've connected with you as the instructor, they can just 1 or 2 clicks, send a video off to you. We detailed it for you earlier, what that looks like in the inbox, that whole process, and then you send it back to them as a lesson. Jackson, real quick, click out of there. And just really quickly, we have the videos here are divided into swings and lessons, right? So they have swing videos that they're creating or that you're sending to them. Click on lessons, Jackson. And these are all of the lessons that you sent to them, right? So it's very clearly organized for them. They do have some models and drills that they can reference. Some of those are locked behind paywalls, right? Those are subscription-based things that they don't necessarily need to work with you, but they could be enticed to use if they go down the line and continue to work with V1. But the swings and the lessons columns, those are where the videos that you send them are going to get stored. So it's very simple and easy for them. It'll organize all of the content that you're sending them, and it makes it that much easier for your students. So definitely highly recommend it. Give it a quick download. Let us know what you think. If you have any feedback, we'd love to hear it. Again, if you want to reach out to Jackson or myself, you can reach us at customer-success@v1sports.com. And Ryan?
Yes, guys, thank you so much. That was awesome. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. You have my contact information in the chat box, as well as all of us here at V1. So continue to send those questions out. We really appreciate you taking the time. I know there's a lot of education you could take your time on, and we do appreciate it. So thank you. Do look for our others, these traces, the content that we have on our website. I mean, I get so much value from listening to these coaches about traces. I've learned more from them through those videos than I've done in my own teaching. So use those as a resource, use us as a resource, and thank you again for spending the time.
Hey, and real quick, I'd be remiss if we didn't mention this just because I see it in the chat box, but those of you asking about how to set up charging for lessons, online lessons, and all that stuff, that relates to our V1 marketplace. And if anybody's interested, Kelly has already put it in the chat box. Reach out to sales@v1sports.com. You could reach out to Ryan, and they'll talk you through that whole marketplace, right? So this is where you're able to advertise your services, charge lessons to people remotely, right? So especially in this time that we're in right now, I think this is more valuable than ever. And it's certainly where the industry seems to be heading anyways, regardless of any COVID restrictions or anything like that. So please, please, please reach out to sales@v1 Sports regarding marketplace, and we'll have somebody reach back out to you, okay? Other than that, guys, thanks for coming. We really appreciate it. On behalf of Ryan and Jackson and everybody at V1, we thank you for coming and for being a part of the family. Thanks, guys.